I was.
Selectmen's meeting, if you'd please stand and join us in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being audio and video recorded. First on the agenda, we have a 6:30 appointment for a transfer of license of Sunnyside. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
Would you just like to introduce yourself, I guess? Tell us.
My name's Brian Forrester, and I'm currently with Sunnyside Cafe.
Okay, and will you be making any substantial changes, or?
No, same menu, business as usual.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Is Charlie still involved?
He comes by every day for coffee and coffee.
Congratulations, best of luck, of course.
Thank you.
No questions? No?
Okay. Is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
That's all.
Congratulations.
Thank
Great.
Good
Thank
luck.
you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a joint meeting of the library trustees for a appointment. Do they need to open their meeting and all that?
They do have to open their meeting at 6:33. It's a posted meeting, so I would
Okay.
recommend we just wait 2 minutes, please.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 15th?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to accept for review the meeting minutes of October 6th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A few weeks ago, we appointed Reverend Ashton to the Conservation Commission as an alternative. It appears that an opening is opened on the board as a full member. So is there a motion to appoint her as a member of the Conservation Commission?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A carryover request for vacation time from Kenneth Aviero, 5 days. Is there a motion to approve that or any comments?
That's according to their union contract?
Yes.
Okay, so moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a proposed calendar with some tentative dates on it for our meetings.
So again, we do this every 6 months. Right now, these, as the chairman said, these are tentative dates. We still have to determine the exact date for town meeting. Based on last year's schedule, it was May 16th. Although once Linda and I sit down, we may have a different date to propose to the board. But as we know, these meeting dates may and sometimes do change over the course of the period.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Now, if I have a conflict with any of those dates, am I supposed to mention that now or later?
If you know, it'd probably be
Yeah,
good now.
April 20th is going to be an issue for me.
Okay.
We could, yeah, I guess we'll just move it at the time. I don't think we need to come up with an alternative date now.
Okay.
If I may just ask, Mary, do you think you would prefer the week before or the week after?
Oh, the week after. Is that, if that's possible?
It may be, well, again, because we're gonna be in the middle of budget season, so we're gonna have to be putting together that schedule, but I'll keep that in mind, and then, I may have to talk to you on the side.
Is it because it's a Wednesday? I mean, could we switch it to another day that week, or is the whole week, do you have
I'm
plans?
supposed to be out of the country that week.
Okay, so that's a bad week. Well, good for you, but.
It's the end of tax season after a pandemic. I am definitely going somewhere.
Okay.
Okay,
I could be available virtually, if that's
Oh.
possible then.
well, that's certainly gonna be possible.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the tentative calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving back to the joint meeting with the library trustees. So do you guys want to open? Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll call the library trustees meeting to order. I've got 6:36.
Okay, sorry, so we have a applicant, Chris Lawrence, for the Board of Library Trustees, who has volunteered. Would you like to introduce yourself or say anything?
No, I can introduce myself. I'm Christopher Lawrence. I'm just volunteered for a candidate to fill the position of been a resident of West Bridgewater, and the library is an institution I believe in, and certainly hope I can give back to the community. And I've gotten a lot from the library, and certainly want to help be a champion for it.
Thank you. Any questions or
No,
comments?
I love your passion. I remember your passion when we were on the strategic planning committee for the library.
Oh, yeah.
So I was happy to see that you had applied for this, so congrats.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
Did-
we have to vote on.
yes, yeah, both
Right.
boards have to
So,
vote. So
I'll
you
make a
guys can go
motion,
first.
That we accept Christopher Lawrence as our new trustee. And
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you. And is there a motion from our board
Aye.
to appoint Chris?
To appoint Chris, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for the Board of Selectmen to recognize Marion Good, who has served for many years and has only resigned because she's in Florida now?
Oh, nice. Absolutely.
Good
Yes.
for her.
But she
Yes.
has served the library for quite a few years.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to adjourn your meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you,
Board of
Chris.
Selectmen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You're out of here. They have all the secrets.
Okay, early. We will move down to the site plan review, for 2 Goldie Road. They have requested or they are proposing to the zoning board a 6-dog, commercial kennel license. So this is our opportunity to send any comments to the zoning board. It looks like they're gonna do a daycare.
Are the applicants here?
I doubt it.
Oh, it's Katie. I went to school with Katie. Okay.
Okay, so no one's here on that?
No, they typically don't come in for this.
Okay.
So what sort of comments would we typically make? Like about sound, about?
This is my first time ever seeing a kennel license, that I recall at least.
I'm not in favor of this because it is a residential area and it's residential zoned. and this is going to be a commercial business, I would like to, you know, pass that on. But that being said, it would be, you know, noise control, lighting.
I believe she put some times in here.
Yeah, I don't.
Hours of operation.
And this is for 5 dogs?
Up
to
to
six.
six.
Up to 6.
For a, I
Does
think
that
it's a doggy daycare.
Does that include ones that they own, or does that mean only?
I believe it would include ones that they own as well.
I'm afraid I
So-
don't know enough about this.
She lists some hours in here. She says the dogs will be dropped off and picked up between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. So I'm going to interpret based on that statement that she's looking for a 6-dog kennel license, allowing up to 6 dogs to be dropped off and picked up between those hours. She says to mitigate noise is that the dogs will not be allowed outside prior to 8 a.m.
I'm fine with those hours. I'm honestly okay with this being in a residential area. It seems, yeah, I guess I would want to make sure that they were conscious of the neighbors.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't have any other comment. I'm sure if there's opposed neighbors that they'll show up to the zoning board meeting, which will be a public meeting.
So I think I just, you know, on top of what I said, lighting, noise. I don't know if this would require any special parking. David, would that come into play at all?
I don't think so. She's, it looks like if they're gonna just drop off and pick up.
Okay.
I do believe, if we go back to the overview of the road. So that's a location. I can tell you from looking at it, she does have a driveway behind the building. So, you know, if 2 people pull in, drop off their dogs and immediately leave, I don't think that would be an issue, from a parking standpoint. And the same thing for picking up.
And this is just Monday through Friday?
I
Or is
believe
it
so.
Saturday and Sunday
I
too?
wanna say it was just Monday through Friday, but,
Now, if they want to change their hours, would they have to let us know?
well, if they're permitted through the zoning board of appeals, assuming an approval, about 5 to 6 dogs, okay. So, so when they receive their special permit from the ZBA will spell out the hours.
Okay.
So, if they say you're limited to 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, then that's what she's limited to. Obviously, if she requests Saturdays and they add Saturdays, then that's what she's limited to as well.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion for any comments?
Just what I already said. Do we need to do
Alright.
that as a motion, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I will make a motion to pass this on to the planning board with the concern,
ZBA.
oh, sorry, ZBA, with concerns over lighting, sound mitigation. Anything else that we need to pass on?
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Just being conscious of their neighbors, being empathetic. I don't know what the right word would be, but so moved.
You mean second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, still on 6:45. Another site plan review for Mobile Fresh Fish Food Trailer located at 221 West Center Street. This is a food truck type proposed operation. Does anyone have any comments?
Can you go to the picture? I looked at it briefly. It didn't look like a food truck to me.
Yeah, trailer, which
So would that just be,
I just
yeah,
kind of assume it might sit there. I don't know if it says it in here or not,
It did not.
but
I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna be stationary, but again, certainly it's mobile. So you can see they do have refrigeration inside. You can see in the bottom center picture, it looks like there would be a a drive-up window, so somebody would be able to pick up food and disperse food through that window. I'm going to come over here for 1 second, just so that way you can see. This is where its location would be. On the best picture is going to be on the right. You can see there's a New Jersey barrier that is located in the center of the parking lot. To the right of it is some pavement along with a grassy area. So it's envisioned that they would put the trailer somewhere on or near that grassy area or right on the edge of it. They would stripe 3 or 4 parking spots in that area. Eventually, they are hoping that they would be able to put picnic tables in the back. That's not, that would be part of their potential expansion going forward. I will say, prior to this, and we can refer to it if you would like to, Mr. Delano from the Conservation Commission, there is no Conservation Commission restrictions on this piece of property because it's not located within 100 feet of wetland areas. But as part of his review, he does make some really legitimate concerns. For example, one is there's no running water here. So typically, whenever you have food service, you would have access to running water. You want to wash your hands, for example. They're going to be selling both unprepared seafood and prepared food. So if it's prepared food, in theory, some of it might be something that you may want to choose to eat on the spot. You can't think of anywhere else, even if it's at Cumberland Farms, for example, that you would be able to access prepared food, think sandwiches, without actually having some legitimate bathroom facilities. So there is some concern here where you don't have running water. There is no bathrooms. They are proposing that if they need to, they would put a porta potty out in the rear. There's not necessarily enough parking in that location to meet our current zoning. Lighting is an issue. They're proposing to be there until 4 p.m. Think about how dark it is tonight at 5 o'clock. So the only lighting in that area would be from headlights from cars that park there, not necessarily the easiest or the safest area. Anybody driving around that corner heading westbound, you can see that there is no protection barriers there. So as people are driving westbound, if somebody were to unfortunately fall asleep or cut the road or whatever the case might be, somebody's going to be standing out there next to their car or at the trailer, a potential safety hazard. And the last is that in that area there is an old fuel tank. It predates any of the requirements from state law, so we do not know what the status of that tank is. Today, you would either have to fill it, you'd pull it out, you'd backfill it, whatever the case is. But from those years back, there is potential that that tank is sitting there empty, and with continuous weight sitting on top of it, it may eventually over time get crushed. We have no engineering plans, we have no ability to know what's actually below there. So all of those are going to have to be discussed at the Zoning Board of Appeals. We don't make that decision. Because they are going to be selling food as well, once they secure a special permit, they're either going to have to, assuming approval, but if they do receive approval, they're going to have to at least go back before the Board of Health to get a food handler's permit and potentially come back before this board to get a common vic license. If they're going to have to get a common vic license, which I'll get legal review on to know for sure, they're going to run into some issues such as bathrooms, parking facilities, and lighting. Even putting a porta potty out back not only does not suffice, in particular to having enough restroom facilities, it certainly is probably not going to qualify for ADA capabilities as well. So I do think that there's a lot of challenges with this. So with that said, excuse me, I'm just going to go in this direction. This is Mr. Delano's concerns. You can see in one, he's concerned about parking. Number two, he's concerned about that it doesn't have enough spaces. One is going to have to be designated for handicap, which means that he only leaves 3 retail spaces. He's talking about entrance and only signs, talking about safety, needs for light. Number 7 is in reference to a septic tank that we're unaware of as to what the disposal of it was. Number 8 is about potable water. Number 9 is about hand sanitation inside the facility. So I think those are all legitimate concerns. My recommendation is without having to reinvent the wheel, is that unless you have some negative concerns towards John's, is that I think that you would just say that we should concur with these concerns, send them off to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Zoning Board of Appeals is gonna have to work through these issues individually with the proposed owner.
Thank you, David. Anything else to add?
No, I make a motion that they, that we refer to John Delano's and agree with his findings.
And pass this on to the ZBA.
And pass it on to the ZBA.
Okay. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, back to the 6:45 hearing. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, on Wednesday, November 17th at 6:45 on the following petition submitted by Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England. Plan number 303-41988 to relocate 13 poles and overhead wire on West Center Street, Lincoln Street, and Crescent Street, and to install 3 new poles on Crescent Street and Lincoln Street. The public hearing will be held in Town Hall, Eldon F. Murray, Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, 2nd floor, 645 North Main Street, West Bridgewater. Plans and petitions available for review in the Selectmen's office. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Would you like to present on, tell us what you're planning on doing?
Sure. My name is Thomas Holton. I work for National Grid. It came to our attention that someone plans to move Lincoln Street so it realigns with Crescent, and that's going to trigger us to have to move all along Lincoln and West Center, and we're going to add one on Crescent in the corner. I'm not sure who's doing the work as far as moving the road. It just came to our attention that it may be moving.
Yep. Yep, we are all aware of that. Does anyone have any questions?
Does it matter which side the sidewalk is on? Has all of that already been taken into consideration?
I believe the builder had an engineer look at it. I have a different plan if you like that. I'm sure you guys did get this one. It shows the sidewalks and the road realignment and all that.
Is that the one, Tom?
That's the one.
Okay. So, just so you're aware, I believe, this shows sidewalks on both sides, is that correct? Okay, so that has not been finalized as to whether or not we'll do on both sides or not. So they're required to provide a sidewalk at a minimum on one side. So whether or not we'll have 2 or not, we're not sure. I also think it's important to note, because not all the work has been completed, and Jim Noyes, who is representing the town as our engineer, is here, if you would like to speak to it. But some of these poles, like right now, it says move 100 feet or move 16 feet. They're not exact. Some of that survey work still has to be complete. But the spirit of this hearing is that we would be moving 13 poles, and we would be installing 3 new poles. Well, they will be, not us.
This is a public hearing, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak. Go ahead.
Okay, I know there's already an existing sidewalk. I live at 440 West Center there, opposite West.
Okay.
And as it is right now, the poles are relatively 2.5 feet from the top. Okay. There's the existing sidewalk that's on the other side. I don't know why they just can't keep poles on that side and go straight down. I understand that they want to take frontage on my house, and my house sits relatively front of my property. And basically, I don't know how much they want to take. You know, I do know if they set a pole, they're going to need a guide wire. And I do have an existing guide wire on my property right now. And it's relatively 8 feet in from that pole. So to me, it's a concern. Also, if you know anything about West Center, and I know we all do, opposite West Street, there's like these, the old posts instead of guardrails, okay? And from the tar to those posts is only 2.5 feet. And if you're gonna put a sidewalk there, you're gonna have to put it all the way down to the new development to Market Basket, I would assume, right? And there's a creek there and a creek bed, and the property slopes. So they have to relatively, unless they're gonna put a sidewalk in that only goes so many feet and just goes to Crescent, West Street. It seems like, why would they even bother putting a sidewalk in there? To begin with, I mean, it's just gonna dead end, and then you're gonna have people crossing, which is, you take your life in your hand every time you cross there. And to have it, there's already an existing sidewalk. I don't know why you'd put another one in. There's no need for it at this time. And plus, when you look up, Bob lives in the house next to me, which he has close to 300, over 400 feet of frontage there, 106. It goes down like this. They'd have to build a retaining wall. I just don't see it engineeringly done. And over there to the right, on West Street, if I could point it out to you, there's water running in there. And that water goes down, and it runs parallel with the street, and then goes back out to the old meadow out there. So there's a lot of engineering work to be done there. And as far as the poles go, you know, I don't want them coming into my front window. You know, it's tough enough. It's just not, doesn't look good to me. You know, and if you have them too close to the street, they can get hit, and they've been hit. I used to work for Verizon, and out of these 13 poles there, in my career, I've replaced maybe 10 of them, and a few of them several times. Because basically, you know, from motor vehicle accidents, weather, overhead trucks, a gamut. These poles, when they're close, they get hit. You know, they could even consider putting it underground and having them come up in certain areas. You know, if they're gonna spend the money now, they might as well spend it. And then they can do stuff. I don't think there's a lot of thought going into this right now. And I haven't even looked over at Lincoln Street, you know. And I've worked on these poles most of my life. In West Street, where are they gonna be? Right on people's, I mean, this is still a town, it's not a city. It's quality here.
What's your name?
Bill Mead.
Bill Mead, okay. You didn't say your name, so
Oh, I'm
sorry.
I should have mentioned it.
So you're saying they're putting a sidewalk on 106 between Crescent and West?
Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah,
you don't
go ahead.
mind, Jim Noyes from Greenman Peterson, town's consultant. They're not planning on putting a sidewalk on the south side of 106. It's going to stay where it is right now on the north side. It's on Lincoln Street that there's, you know, the engineer for the development's looking to see whether he wants to put the sidewalk on one side or the other. So it'll remain on the north side on 106, and it's still up in the air whether it goes on the east or west side down Lincoln Street.
Thanks, Jim. Mrs. Raleigh, did you have something?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just have a question on the project itself. I haven't really heard whether actually it's going to go or not. I have a call right now into District 5 from Mass Highway, and from the engineers, and as of right now, I have not heard from them. But with so many questions and everything, we were at a planning board meeting in July, and we were told at that time, with a lot of concerns, traffic especially, which we all know it certainly exists there, that that project would not fly unless Mass Highway got on board. And I would like to know from you people what is going on with the project, because as townspeople, we're not hearing. I mean, this was tonight, was, you know, a planning board, unless we follow it, the towns don't know. And people are really upset about this. I mean, people not only from town, but they use the town. So I would like to know what is happening.
Have they been issued permits yet?
They have not. They're in the permitting process. They filed everything with DOT, Jim, unless you know otherwise, they have not heard back from DOT with official permits at this point.
No, they're still within the state environmental process. I know they submitted the draft environmental impact report a couple of months ago. They should have their decision by now, but I don't know if it was favorable or not, and they still have one more round with the environmental report. And it's not until after that that the state can issue permits, so that's probably still a few months out.
So that's why it's been quiet on our end, because until they receive permits from DOT, there's not much else they can do. And we're entering a period of the year that there's not any road work that could be done anyway. So it's quiet. Could we have one meeting?
Sorry.
Thank you. So it's, right now, it's just this, we're still in the waiting period from DOT, so that's why it's been quiet. Which is, nobody has any answers yet until DOT issues their permits.
Right, but I mean, we're all sitting there wondering what's going on, and I was just wondering too. When you do hear, is there any way we as residents can get copies of what they have found? How do we do that? Do we, planning board, you people? I would like to see the actual results.
Yeah, I want to know how much they want to take of my land.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
something that
this
we've
is,
been living with for quite a few months here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the traffic has gotten terrible. We've got all kinds of sand and gravel trucks going by, all kinds of activity out there. And the road is not, and I realize it's a town road, state signed, and I understand that. But this is a ridiculous situation that, I mean, that it's even being considered.
A quick question too, and plus with Maryland, I have cracks in my walls from the heavy trucks or overloaded trucks that go by, and they bounce, and they crack. And literally, I fixed them over and over and over and over. But the house shakes, it rumbles, okay? And it is close, but it's an inconvenience. The people in town, 15, 20 years ago, you could literally get out of town in 5 minutes. You're taking 15 minutes to get out of town right now. And it's all up here. And I understand everything's located on 106 there. But the side streets, if they're gonna line up Lincoln to Crescent, that's fine. But Crescent Street backs up from 2 o'clock in the afternoon all the way down in North Elm. And there's road rage constantly there. And the people that come from West Street that use it, they're not gonna come down to Crescent, because that's gonna back up. That light is gonna back people up. It's not gonna be a fix for anything. And the people that come down here to West Street, they sit and they wait to pull out, and the traffic is coming and it's coming. And people are coming the other way at a relatively high rate of speed, 35 miles an hour. And there's accidents galore here. Now, and there's also many, many fender benders that aren't even reported. Now, I understood at one point, this section of road had the highest amount of rear end accidents, because people weren't paying attention. And, phones and, not looking out. And a lot of it was here, because people would pull out in front of them, and they didn't get on their brakes quick enough. You sit there in the line of traffic, in the yelling and the screaming, and the honking, the constant honking. And if you're somebody who doesn't have enough gumption to sit there and do it the right way and pull out so you don't kill yourself if you're gonna take a left, you pull out, you're gonna get it on the driver's side, right there.
Yep.
That has to be addressed, because that's just gonna go back.
So,
And the town's getting busier, busier, and busier.
so not to diminish everything you said, because I agree with you more than not, but I would like to circle back to a question he had, and for the National Grid representative, why aren't you looking at underground utilities?
That's up to the person building it. If they want to pay for that, they can bring that option to us. We're not moving this on our own accord.
Right.
This isn't for us, this is for a customer.
Okay. Is there a significant price difference?
Yes.
There is.
Double huge.
Yeah.
But
It just makes more sense, with all of the, I know it's not your fault that I didn't have lights for 4 days, but, with all the outages it's more common now than I recall in my lifetime, over the past 5 years, the number of times we've lost power, because of a storm, it just seems more logical to start investing in that type of infrastructure, putting the utilities underground versus.
Above my pay grade. significantly.
Above your pay grade? Okay, well, maybe you can bring it to someone in that pay grade that I mean, the amount of money you spend on overtime and bringing in crews from out of the country, I know because my son's a lineman. It's a huge expense, year after year after year. I just don't understand why the investment's not made in the infrastructure to pretty much solve a
I do
problem.
know one part of the puzzle, and that is longevity and reliability. I know that a lot of people feel underground is more reliable.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to outages and tree limbs and MVAs, it is. Overhead pole, wire, all that infrastructure, shelf life's about 100 years. Underground, you're looking at 25 years, and you're replacing everything. So the cost on the ratepayers and all that, there's a lot that goes involved with the underground. I used to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Before I started working there, I'd ask the same questions too.
Yeah.
There was something similar that happened in Easton on Main Street. They rallied for about 10 years and they got the funds and they put a couple thousand feet worth underground. And I believe that was for aesthetics, really.
Is there, and secondly, I mean, is there a way to put in a pole so the guide wire is not at his door?
Can you show me where your house is on that map?
Sure. I have two poles, actually. Pole number 71 and 72. And I can tell you many times that people, they're crazy when they drive. Traffic backs up, taking a left onto West Street here, and somebody wants to go right and pass on the right-hand side. But if that's not good enough, they literally go on my grass between the pole and the guide wire and go like that. Now, that hasn't happened once.
Yeah.
That happens many times. The traffic has to be figured out. Is that gonna be a one-way?
So,
I mean,
like
this
him to
whole
look
thing.
at that, the traffic on 106, I would love to say, there's so many things here that are gonna solve that, it's not.
In the
It's
length
not.
of the pole.
And the more people drive, which we can't prevent people from driving, the busier our streets are going to get. But I guess it all goes back to the same thing. If people are willing to sell their land to profit, you can't blame them for it, and someone wants to put in a permissible business, you
Well, I
can't
think the
stop
poles
them.
here,
But the polls, I think we should talk about.
well, the pole, number 7, I don't know, it's pole 1, Crescent, and then it crosses over to pole 73.
Mm-hmm.
If you go up there right now, everything goes like this. And if you get a truck that's over 13.6, might have something on it, it's gonna whack the utility that's hanging there. And it's happened 4 or 5 times in the last 10 years. That the poles aren't tall enough, they're not big enough, there's too much slack in there. But, you know, it's the way it comes over like that, you know?
Are these issues that will be resolved?
Yeah, we're putting 50-foot poles in that intersection. I believe the majority of them now are 35-footers.
Well, they're 45, I think. I'm not.
I believe
not
there's
a-
one 45-footer in there as well, but they're gonna be 50s.
I feel for all of you, I really do. I don't have any answers. I just wanted to mention that I've been talking with the Old Colony Planning Council. I'm on one of their committees, and they are aware of this whole project, and we've been talking about it, somehow getting the county in line with the town when all of this happens. I don't have any answers. I'm just letting you know the conversation is happening.
Is the moving of the poles part of a master plan to widen 106?
That I don't know.
I mean,
It's for this alignment primarily, to align Lincoln and West.
I mean, they all seem to be moving into the properties.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
is this going
on
to the highway? Is
106.
that going up to the highway?
The highway's the
No,
south.
that's going to
Highway
Market
this way.
Basket.
Okay.
It's the taking of the proposed land in front of our houses. Is that just because of the sidewalk? Is that why they're doing it?
Jim, do you know?
Not on that side, no, not on your side. There's no sidewalk, it's on the other side.
Right,
Yeah.
but they're proposed, it said right there, it's gonna be a sidewalk there.
No, he was saying there's no sidewalk on
Yeah,
this
there's
side.
none. There's gonna be a little bit of roadway widening, but again, they're still developing the plans. The engineer had, and just not to take too much time on the board, the engineer originally had 2 lanes going westbound for an improvement and keeping 1 lane eastbound. They've agreed to switch that around so that, everybody knows at night you're stuck going back up across the bridge. They've agreed to go with 2 lanes eastbound and 1 lane westbound. We feel it's gonna work.
And where will that merge? Where does that 2-way merge into a single way?
It'll start merging right by the,
Right, but where's it gonna end?
pretty
you
much
point-
by your property.
Could you point it out?
Yeah.
Is it
Well,
before?
it's right across, right at West Street. It'll go back down to the existing.
So what pole? Pole 72 or 71?
71.
Okay, so that doesn't alleviate the trouble on West Street at all.
No.
What's gonna be coming out there? I mean, this is a problem that's gonna mushroom, and it's quality of life. I understand it to go through, but the people that are building this, they're cash rich, money's cheap. They should invest in this town and do it right. Taking it and kind of moving it around, I understand, it's gonna look good. I don't know. And putting a light there is crazy. What happens if we get pedestrians coming in? Boom, boom, boom. And who controls the light? Like Market Basket controls that light. Are they gonna control that light for their trucks certain times of the day? Are they gonna be told to go down Lincoln and go up Pleasant, or cut down, or are you gonna put way too heavy to go down Scotland? I know they rebuilt the bridge 10 years ago for heavy. You can go well over, I don't know how many tons, 40 tons, 50 tons. It's gonna be going into Bridgewater. I mean, where are they gonna go?
So to go back to the first issue,
Yeah.
the lights. I don't know, I'm not certain if it's necessarily the lights that are gonna create the issue. I think it's the traffic that's gonna create the issue. I don't think the lights are gonna create the issue. There was some negative feedback on just putting the lights at Howard Street, and after multiple times experiencing, you cannot get out out of Howard Street. You can sit there all day. I've done it before. I mean, I'm exaggerating when I say all day, but eventually you get to the point of, I gotta get somewhere, and you try to get out there,
That's
and you're
what
taking your
happens on
life
West
into your
Street.
hands.
I
You
don't
really
get out
are.
of my driveway. I have to
Yeah.
go right. I can't take a
So-
left. 1 out of 20 times, I can
Yep.
take a left.
So the first time someone says, well, putting up lights, that's really annoying. Well, sorry, but no one is polite anymore to let you out of a street. It just doesn't happen. You sit there and you wait, and very rarely is someone going to stop and say, go ahead.
Well, there
So,
should be another light
You need
at
the
West
light.
Street.
well, I think that's too
I mean, why
close.
can't they put another light there then? I mean, look at the center of town. We got lights here, there, and there. I never thought that they'd ever put 2 lights together like
Yeah.
they did, but they did, and it works. The lights can be set. Because you're gonna have people coming out, and there will be trouble there. It will be like Matfield in North Main. You get all those bad accidents there. It will happen. It's just.
Mrs. Rowley, do you have something?
Yeah, I do. I just want to agree with you, Denise, on the fact that everybody has the right to sell their property. However, we also have a small town made up of elected and appointed officials and committees. And I feel very strongly it is up to you people and all of us that are appointed or whatever to look out for our town and the residents to the best we can, not the business that's trying to come in.
I think we are, but I think the biggest problem that you have is it's not only our responsibility, it's the residents' responsibility.
Absolutely.
And if they don't show up at town meeting, then, whoever shows up and votes makes the final decision for everyone.
I think we
And
saw that quite.
We were all at the meeting.
Yeah.
We saw people were there for a certain reason. I don't know how many of them walked out before this even came up. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the biggest things that has come to town in a while. And we lost probably 25% of town meeting before this
Saw
even
that, was
came
there.
up,
I
right?
can vouch for that.
So, I mean, before pinning it on us, I'd say you've got a bunch of residents you need to go talk
Absolutely.
to.
We used to have a quorum
Okay, because
town meeting, but we don't anymore.
Right.
And that is gone by the board, which we couldn't have had a town meeting if those people had left.
yeah,
Is that a good idea? I don't know. I think that works both ways.
I mean, if I had my choice, if it was my decision, the gentleman that owns what's the store there that he sold the house, I can't. Dempsey's. Mr. Dempsey wouldn't have sold his house. They wouldn't have been able to move the street. And we probably wouldn't even be sitting here talking about this today. But it goes back to, if people want to sell their property and there's a profit, we can't make a decision or enact something that's illegal for someone who has a legal right to be somewhere.
Absolutely, but
Right.
that's why we need committees and people on committees. And I
That
work the
meet
polls.
together.
And meet together, and I work the polls, and I know 9 out of 10 local elections, people are unopposed.
Yeah.
And I personally would like to see the younger people get involved and run for, we've got some very talented young people in town here. And they come here for a reason, from what I gather. And we wanna keep it that way. I know we can't go back that far, but this is ridiculous.
Like I said, I was shocked that people walked out. I was surprised at the minimal amount of questions about this project. And then the vote happened. And that's one good thing about town meeting, is your residents, your voters get to make the decisions in town. But when the room is stacked for one specific purpose, and then everyone walks out because they don't care about the rest, well, it's a community. If you're gonna show up at town meeting, you should be there for the whole meeting and care about everyone,
That's right.
not just your special interest. So unfortunately, we're all here, and this is the project. I keep seeing plans, but the plans keep changing a little bit for a variety of reasons.
One thing I cannot understand is why we gave them a tip. Why? They wanna come into town, let them pay the full bill, period.
Well,
I mean-
I'm not a TIF fan either, but
Yeah.
the fact is originally, we had applied for a grant to get this work done,
Mhm.
because 106 does need to be widened, and it was denied.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, David, it was
That is
denied in its entirety, correct?
It was denied.
And it was unlikely, at least we believed it was unlikely we would be approved in the future. And then all of this came up with him buying the land and Mr. Dempsey selling his house so that the street could be moved. I don't know which happened at what point, but it all happened. And the fact was, if he was going to come into town, well, add in widening 106, because it just couldn't happen unless Crescent Street was gonna be moved. I'm sorry, Lincoln Street was gonna be
Lincoln,
moved.
right.
Sorry about that,
We
Lincoln
all
Street.
knew
Yeah. Lincoln Street was going to be moved. So, unfortunately, that perfect storm happened.
Mm.
But again, I just go back to town meeting and say the same thing over again. If people don't want certain things to happen in this town and they feel that strongly about it, they need to go to town meeting and they need to be vocal.
Another thing too, a lot of the newer people that are coming into town have no idea about how our government is run.
Yeah.
And they don't understand town meeting. They don't understand they have a right to make a decision like that, because they come from an area where they don't have a right. Either they have an elected city councilor or a town meeting member or whatever. They don't have that opportunity, and that's too bad.
I don't know how you start notifying them more than we already have. I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe, when they come into town and they get their dump sticker, someone hands something to them that explains their community responsibility as a voter.
Years
Because
ago,
it is a
we used to have pre-town
responsibility.
meetings.
Huh?
Years ago, we used to have pre-town meetings where the moderator would go through all the articles. and people would have a chance to go and ask their questions at that time, and yet would come to town meeting prepared and would know what the issues are.
We can't even get them at town meeting.
know.
I doubt we could get them at a pre-town meeting.
So I ask, what is the purpose of the light? I mean, really,
Well,
why do they have to have that light?
as you've said, it's very difficult to pull out of Lincoln Street. It's, so,
Sure, there's a
I mean,
slight
I think that would be
elevation,
the
and
primary
you're dealing-
purpose.
This whole thing's about 18-wheelers, correct?
Yeah.
All 18-wheelers. You ever seen an 18-wheeler start from a stop and try to go up a little and take a turn to the left? We all know how the corner and the old pole down at the corner used to be down the street here. Used to get whacked constantly. You're not gonna get a lot of traffic moving. You might get two, and then the light's gonna change, unless they control that light. So say they control it for 2 minutes, or 2.5 minutes they put it on. And then they're not getting people out, they're backing into their own property, at certain hours. So they change it to 4 minutes. That happens at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they will be on 24, south and north in the breakdown lanes, like they are at 140. It will be like that. And that should be seen. I mean, as it is, if you don't have the light, they just come in, okay? And they come in, and they can take a little bit where the sign is, and they can come in and go in, and then they can go around the other way. They can go down Lincoln, take a right, and come up the back way. And just pull over there and get on, then they have highway access. It's a clover leaf there, so they can come down, go around. Why don't they have to come up on 106? I mean, they really don't have to. To me, it's just causing more problems. It's gonna be, all good deeds here, it's gonna cause a ripple effect. And
So
it's all gonna come down to the traffic,
So I'd
the
have
direction
to
of traffic.
ask Jim Noyes. I'm sure, DOT is your main authority here. I'm sure they've looked at all this and considered all this.
They're actually just focused on their the 24 interchange, because their layout actually stops at the cemetery.
Okay.
So they've actually pretty much have not only not focused on this, they haven't been really informed by the developer on what's going on here, but I've been talking to the traffic engineer. For the district, we've been just exchanging notes on, he knows what's going on in the state property where I don't, and he's been telling me that, we've been filling each other in.
So I would think if there was a major concern at this point about traffic backing up on 224 and on 24, DOT would be,
Yeah, that's their number one priority. Actually, that's what's been holding them up on the permitting. And we're both in agreement between myself and the traffic engineer there that whatever happens here cannot back up into 24. One other thing too, just so, the town will own this light. They'll control any sort of timing on this light, so there will be there's no chance that, the Lincoln Street can arbitrarily be increased to, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. The town actually owns this. They actually own all the signals on 106. It's just, so they can control whatever operation. And again, that goes back to if there's any problems backing up to 24, they'll just give more free time for 106.
Thanks, Jim. So we have gotten a little off topic. We do have to take a vote on the relocation and additional poles.
So we would vote on this even though we know it's not definite?
We don't know where the poles are gonna go, right?
Right, and the sidewalks.
And how much land they're gonna take.
So the eminent domain is a different
Okay, but.
discussion. This is, I assume that we take a vote with some leeway that they, can adjust slightly the poles to both their needs and to hopefully for
Well,
your
I don't think
needs.
an engineer, so you can't build in too much into the engineering. They have to be certainly spaced at a position, they gotta be.
are you asking for this more for a scheduling issue?
It's part of a rudimentary requirement, actually.
Okay.
We have a list of requirements, we gotta knock them all off and then wait for scheduling.
Yeah, so Jim, will these be exactly where they are, or do they move from
No,
time
there's
to
some
time?
leeway, and we were actually talking about that with Mr. Holden too, because you can't, you know, we had suggested staking them out now, but, you know, he noted to me that Dempsey's building's still in the way, so, I mean, a couple of those poles are actually going to be where the building physically
Yeah.
is now, so. Yeah, in terms of leeway, and, it's hard, not longitudinal lateral, they might move a couple of feet either way, you know, depending on the final design of the road, which it's still being worked on, as we say, but, you know, the poles are in those areas.
Okay, so it's more of a general area.
Well, he used the word leeway, and I say, you know, it's coming into my front window, that word, you know? Either way, you know, it's not going in the street that way. You know, you're not taking any land on the other side where they have a huge amount of frontage between their buildings and the street, whereas on this side of the street, there isn't. You know, they got the sidewalk on that side. I mean, 6 feet's a lot, if they take 6 feet. That's huge.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't approve this tonight?
I can only tell you, in over a decade of experience, I've never seen that occur. So, the spirit of the conversation is that there are 13 poles. Nothing is ideal. They are going to stay there, or they're going to be moved so many feet in one direction or another, and there are 3 new poles. So, I don't think there's a requirement that you vote yes. Obviously, if you vote no, then the project probably crawls to a halt, probably ends up in litigation. You'd have to prove, I mean, because now it becomes a detriment and a financial hardship. You know, poles they're already there. I think it would be different if there was no poles and they were saying, hey, let's install 16 poles. But when 13 of those 16 poles are already there, and we're moving them in feet in one way or the other, you know, I think we'd have a hard time justifying the ability to be able to say no, but, and that would have to be litigated.
Are we talking 2 feet here? What are we talking in footage? 6 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet?
as
You
far
say
as
feet
what?
like it's nothing. I mean, how many feet are we talking about?
As far as
Moving the poles, encroaching on my property, in Bob's property.
from where they currently are?
Yeah.
Jim, do you know that? How much?
I don't have the plans.
So, I mean, it's right, 71, 72,
5 feet.
73 is 5 feet.
If I recall, pole 71 will still be within the town's current layout. Pole 72, I think, would be on the corner of your property in the town's layout.
Right,
But
myself
that's
and
the
Rob.
best- Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best I can recall.
Right, yeah, you're right. So you're taking 6 feet from where the town is, where the marker is, so you have another 4 feet, correct? I think there's like maybe 3.5, 4 feet left in the front where the sewer is.
Yeah, I don't.
And then you're gonna wanna go 6 feet, you have to take 2 of my elm trees down.
Yeah,
You know?
if I recall honestly, on your property, there's just going to be an easement for the overhead wires. It's
How
just
about
a
that
triangle area, but that's off the top of my head.
I'd like to see the actual staking and everything else. It would be not what ifs, how. Because it affects what I see every day. You know, the noise is huge for me.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Noyes, how is that going to affect our property at 448, which is pole number 7, I don't know.
73, 72.
Yeah. What's gonna happen there?
How far is 73 coming in?
Looks like it says 5
5 feet.
feet.
5 feet?
Oh, I see, the old ones, there's the new ones.
5 feet?
I thought that's what you said.
Well, the town owns 6 feet on that side, or each side of the road, so
The town was 6 feet?
No, it's not, they took some,
They-
of that 6 feet.
It was
but-
8 feet.
Oh.
They took 2 feet.
Okay,
Now it's
all right, now I
5
see,
feet.
okay.
Okay, are there any other comments? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And is there a motion on the request?
I know, I hate to agree with it,
Beyond the 71,
but
see, a little further, or is that as far as the map goes?
Yeah, the map
That's as
stops
far as
there.
they're gonna do
Yeah.
anything.
Okay. Because I thought they had something going further down.
but unfortunately, I
that would
agree
be
with
on my
David, this
property.
would be a litigating issue, this would stop the project and we would be in
That
trouble
corner
for
is
it.
your property. That
Well,
pole-
yeah, that's where our
That pole
driveway
is
is.
yours and mine, that's
Yeah.
what separates.
But it doesn't go beyond that point?
Well, there's
The
this,
pole changes? I thought it did go beyond that 71.
I don't know what the picture is.
They aren't requesting any other poles being moved, so this
At
is it.
this time, anyway, yeah. Yeah, so unfortunately, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming in.
Yes, thank you all for coming in.
Okay, next we have a tax classification hearing. Is this the right one? Yep. Pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 56, Mass General Law, notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 645 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, to consider the issue of adopting the residential factor and tax levy percentages, specifically the issue of adopting local property tax levy among the 5 property classes, residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property for fiscal year 2022. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're a little behind, Steve, so if you want to give us a quick, or John, I'm not sure who's presenting, a quick overview.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. As you stated, we're here tonight for the FY '22 classification hearing to hopefully set the tax rates for the town of West Bridgewater. You have in front of you the package that Principal Assessor Donahue, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had in front of you. Sorry about that. Every year we put together for the board a package explaining essentially the parts that go into the classification hearing and really just the important parts of it. And every year I'd like to make a note on the third page in, if you will, there's a pie graph. And to me, especially being a commercial appraiser or assessor, this is probably, to me, the most important sheet in the package. It shows a breakdown of our community of residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property, a percentage by class. In the pie graph, as you see, and it's illustrated down below, the majority of the town, as in most towns in the area, the majority of the town is residential property. Where we're set apart in a lot of communities in and around us is that and I make note of this every year because it is important, that our commercial, industrial, and personal property percentage, if you look below the pie graph, the three of those, we call it the CIP, commercial, industrial, personal property, if you add the three of those up, they exceed 30% of our total value. And where that's important, as I allude to, is that the Department of Revenue, by a rule of thumb, I don't know if it's any type of statute, says that in order for a town to classify and have a split rate, that breakdown probably should exceed 21–22%. And of course, we're over 30, so we're well above that. That suggested break off there. And I talked about it every year again, the makeup of our town, being next to the highway, excellent, infrastructure and such. We're afforded the the breakdown of over 30%, we're afforded the chance to have a split rate, which we do. Which says that we're allowed to take part of our tax burden and pass it on to the CIP, commercial, industrial, personal property, properties. A lot of the towns, Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and Plimpton's going down that way, don't have a split rate for that reason. The majority of their value is strictly in residential properties. And like I said, because of proximity to the highway and other things, we have good, and it could get a lot better. I could talk about it, but I won't. The industrial park and some of the programs we have, hopefully they'll get better in the future. You talked about the TIFs, pilots, and being aggressive with grants, stuff like that. It'll leave our community the chance to classify, which we do. Next page, it shows the property class valuation in its total by class. And the important thing here is if you look down from the top on the third highlighted blue line, it's a total valuation of our little community here from starting with fiscal 17 back to 22. And I've been running this meeting, talking about this since I came on back in 2005, I believe. And like I say, when I say little community, then I look at the total value. If you look on the right-hand column, the bottom blue line, we're up at $1,365,000, which is, to me, something to be said about that. I forget our total number of taxable parcels, but I remember when I started, it was something like 700 million or something, way down. You can see from FY21, our total value was $1,300,000,000, and we've gone up over 65 million to $1,365,000, and I expect in the ensuing year or two, with the results of the COVID pandemic and what's that doing to the real estate market, I expect that value will probably go up considerably next year. Below that, it's a bar graph showing those property values illustrated in the bar graph. The next page, again, it's you got the blue outline, the purple, if you will, and the yellow, and it just kind of breaks down the residential, commercial, and industrial properties by the individual class. If we could look, if you would, the top right on the blue line, you'll see the top right, FY21 and 22. Right. If you will, on the very top line is the residential value, and for purposes of this bar graph, we've only taken the single-family homes here in town. For FY21, the total value of the single families, if you bear with me here, on the top line on the right, FY21 was $760,906,000. For 22, it shot up to $811,690,000, and it's almost a 7% change from 21. And then that's the same as you go through each bar graph. By year it shows the percent change from the previous year, the parcel count, the tax rate, the average bill, and the average value. So in FY21, the average residential value of single families, again on the blue graph, the fifth line down was $359,937, and for FY22, fifth line down on the blue graph on the top right, the FY22 single family value was $382,152, up around a little over 6%. And what I've noticed, I'm surprised it wasn't higher when I talked to John about it, but that'll come into play probably next year with the one thing in the course of my business I've noticed, and it's been talked about, that the COVID pandemic did a lot of stuff, but one thing it did was it cut down on real estate inventory. And what that does there, it becomes a seller's market. And you look at any home, and I've looked at a bunch of them, and I fall out of my chair when I see some of the stuff. These New England Colonials selling for $600,000 in 7 days, and a couple of them I investigated. I called the bank, I tried to talk to the appraiser, and they got typical industry standard mortgages. So it's not, I've tried cases before when it's been back in the 90s when it's been balloon finance and such. That's not the case here. Because of the lack of inventory, the realtors are putting low values on them and let the bidding war begin. So you see a lot of these homes in town, which I'm off on a tangent here, but they're selling $100,000 above the asking price in a matter of less than 30 days because of that. So I'll be interested to see, John, what happens next year with these numbers.
Can I ask a quick question before you move on? Which number was it that you said you were surprised at?
These, on the value, the FY '21, on the blue graph, the fifth line down, up on the right hand, Mary, it's, the average value was $359 last year, and this year it's only gone up to $382. I'd expect, and that shows an increase of 6%, a little over 6%. Maybe I was a year short, but I thought that percent change would be up 9, maybe 10%. It's up 6%, which is, you see other years, 4%, well, 7%, back to 6%, 2%. So I was surprised that the single-family home values from 21 to 22 went up, a little over 6%. And that's really just made about the pandemic. I thought it might have been higher, but I'll be interested to see next year what happens with that.
Yeah, I'm surprised has your board met and you guys have gone over these numbers, you voted on them?
Well, no, the Department of Revenue has improved that. That's for us to come to meet with you. John works hard with the staff and with our vendor and put all the stuff together. So it's, the paper doing their property, overseen by John and the staff, and the DOR, which has come a long way since I've been doing this. It's accelerated with the IT stuff. So they're the ones that actually say your sales meet the criteria. They might do some measuring listing. I'm not sure exactly how they run their program, but they dive into the sales. And for me, it's tough because, like when I was in Brockton, we had a zillion sales to, you can kind of get the market down pat. Here, I don't know what it is on typical year. We might have 60, 70 hour-one sales. And that's not a lot to work from, but it's enough. Where in the big cities, you might have 900 to really break it down by class, by style, all that good stuff.
But as a board, you guys have gotten together and you've researched that number. You're sure it's accurate?
Yeah, but we're not, when you say research, we have LA3s, they approve it, and that's all we go on the data that we have. But at least it kind of, fits the bill. If it went down, then I'd say, well, something's wrong. I don't know how they approve that. But here, by going up by 6%, I know it's in the ballpark. I just thought my own guess, because I do it for a living, not so much residential, but I was gonna, probably bet on maybe 9 or 10%. And I've seen this before, not to this extent, but the home sales, you take, look at that Saturday Enterprise, the transfers, right? The last 2 homes on my street sold above 7 bills in less than 20 days. 8 years ago, that was unheard of.
Okay, well, you've said a couple of items that have me a little bit concerned. You're saying it's in the ballpark if we're going to be voting on a tax rate?
No, the ballpark of, I looked at it and said, it looks okay. And when you said you've checked this data and approved it, I haven't checked exactly number for number.
Well, you're presenting that you think this number is lower than you expected.
Just the average single-family home. What I'm saying is that the sales I've seen out there, right, the valuation increases because of the pandemic, but then I've kind of corrected myself, because our values here are as of 1/1/21. And now, here we are almost at the end of the year, so now we got a whole nother year to catch up with. I'm just making a casual statement saying that, look on your own street or pull some of the sales, I've seen some pretty high numbers. I haven't actually gone into the breakdowns, but when I see 6%, it didn't surprise me. I thought that might have been higher. It's got nothing to do with actualities or me approving certain numbers. I'm just saying that, it looked, that number from my standpoint, it looked, I thought it might be a little bit higher, but it's not,
And you said you're not a residential specialist and you expected that to be higher.
I am a residential specialist, but I don't do residential work.
Commercial.
I do commercial industrial, but I have a general certified license, which makes me, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
In a general sense, our total value's gone up, we're up over almost $1.4 billion. Our abatements are down, in all the days on market, and I'm doing a lot of work now for the nearby communities, for the municipalities, and we do a lot of work on rental analysis, this type of stuff, and the market's been crazy, so that's all.
John, did you want to add something?
Well, I was just going to state, as a matter of process, as you know, the board contracts with the vendor. The vendor analyzes the sales. The vendor submits the sales to me for my review. I review it, and if it's satisfactory, I submit that to the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue looks at the statistical data. This is all statistically driven. So we have to, all sales have to fall within a 10% coefficient of dispersion. So the sales can be from 90% to 100% of their market value. The assessments must be within that 10% coefficient of dispersion. Steve is surprised, and I am surprised, that the sales that were analyzed were taken from a database going back 2 years, up until December 30th of 2020. So next year, as Steve indicated, we'll probably see a higher increase because of what's going on in the market today.
We're just looking at the data that's given us.
But these meet the statistical requirements of the Department of Revenue.
Steve, back to you.
Okay, so that's just a breakdown, you know, for your.
Could I ask a question? Because
Sure.
I'm still not sure on the answer. I think what I'm trying to understand is in past years, you put this package together, your board meets, you review it, and I don't know if you actually vote or if there's a recommendation that, okay, let's move forward and submit this to the selectmen for the meeting. Did that occur?
I don't know that they ever do that.
No, we don't do that. We wait for, once we know the Department of Revenue has done that and Patriot's done their job, you know, and we'll look at all the values and review some of that stuff. But as far as this goes, like John, it's all based on stats, approved by the Department of Revenue, done by Patriot, our vendor. So I'm not sure what we could do to refute this.
And this is an iterative process. So I submit the sales before I submit the sales to the Department of Revenue, I submit them electronically to the Board of Assessors. They each sign off.
And he reviews them and kicks out anything that's not a market transaction to start with, right?
Could I repeat the exact question? Has the board officially met and reviewed this proposal?
No.
No, there's no need to.
So you're presenting something that the board has not looked at
The board has
officially?
looked at each submission that was presented to them and signed off on and submitted to the Department of Revenue.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this process just because it does seem to be different. For that reason, I would like to make a motion for a continuance on this hearing.
I think if we do that, we're hurting our treasurer and others. If we, I mean, the numbers were verified by the DOR, correct? I mean, I don't.
Approved, right?
Approved.
And done by Patriot and such.
I mean, I understand that typically the assessors meet first, but I think we have a bigger picture is just getting this done so that our treasurer can get the bills out.
To be clear, the board doesn't meet to approve this, to be clear.
This seems to be the biggest role of the Board of Assessors and Board of Selectmen, or one of the most important roles.
Yeah, well, you're talking on a roll for these sheets or the job in general. We do that.
Yeah, in general.
We do the sales and all that stuff and talk to taxpayers, our general duties.
Mm-hmm.
But the board doesn't get into these sheets and say, this stat's wrong, that stat's wrong. We've never done that.
So we do have a motion. Is there a second?
So I'm going to second the motion, but only for procedural purposes, because I have some questions to vet for discussion before we take a vote. Okay? So
The discussion has to be on the motion specifically.
okay. So just so I understand, again, in particular, are you saying that Cheryl and Paula have no input whatsoever before you get to this part of presenting it to us? I know prior to this they did.
No, I'm not saying
From what you said.
I'm not saying that. No.
Okay,
As
so
I
they've
said-
never seen this.
Yes,
Oh, they've seen this package with the tax rate split and everything?
yes. It was sent out the same time that you received it.
I didn't get it till this afternoon.
That's correct. But
I didn't have time. I'll be honest with you. I figured I'd wait and hear what you had to say, because getting it this afternoon, I didn't have time.
that's fine. But the board makes no recommendation, as you know. The Board of Assessors makes no recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. That's why it's in your hands to make a decision, because it's a political decision. You need to decide what it is that you view the community in terms of residential taxpayers and commercial taxpayers and industrial taxpayers. Oftentimes, as you know, you've asked the board, what's your recommendation? And the board says, we have no recommendation. That's your decision. The board has received and signed off electronically on every submission to the Department of Revenue. So they have looked, as I said, it's an iterative station.
He's saying the work going into this is a numeric type, a lot of submissions to the Department of Revenue and sometimes discussions. But as far as, this actual sheet done, we got it this afternoon, I'm not sure when. We haven't had a chance to sit down and go over it, but that's never really been the case.
So for the board's edification, the sales report is an LA3, Form LA3. The board has reviewed, I assume, the LA3 because the board signed off on it individually. Then the LA4 is submitted, which is all of the values, which is part of the package. This is a condensation, obviously, of all of the forms that have been submitted and approved by the Department of Revenue. And then the LA13 is submitted, which is growth, which is probably the most important thing for the community because that affects your tax levy. And that was signed off by the individual members of the board. And then the LA13A is submitted and signed off. And then the levy limit. And then in the process, the town accountant has submitted forms A1, A2, B1, B2, and no tax title this year. Those don't have to be signed by the board. They have been submitted, and some have been approved, some will be approved after tonight's meeting. But the board is here, and Mr. McCarthy is presenting to you for your decision how you want to split the taxes between residential, commercial, and industrial.
Okay, so.
Not to talk about what the board may or may not have met.
Can I just say too, all the numbers that are, there's a lot thrown at you there, but all those numbers are based on, total values, as you see fit for a split, number of parcels, all that good stuff. So that's all, it's all machine driven by, factual data.
Then how did we get mistakes in prior years? Because I just remember last year when we got this, remember there were calculation errors and we were told, well, don't look at that number because that number's not right.
It happens.
Right,
Yeah,
so
I
if
think-
it's
I
all
think
machine driven,
In response to your question, I think specifically that was because the prior year tax rate was the estimated tax rate that was presented at the meeting.
In error.
And then it was just a matter of correcting the tax rate. So
Okay.
we made sure that that didn't happen.
okay, all right. So one other question with regard to the motion. So I think it's the LA3 that I had the most concern with, John. The fact that last
Sales
year,
report.
it was just odd that Capes and Capes were flat in assessed value, Colonials went down in assessed value, and ranches went up. So now when we're going to look at the tax rate, I know you find it funny, Steve, I find you funny too. But
I think you're hilarious.
All right.
So, but the question is, so now when we're getting ready to vote on this tax rate, right, or to consider the tax rate, do you see, or can you even say that type of phenomenon or might continue?
Well, that will happen every year. It's a general question, specifically, and you and I had a conversation about
Right.
Colonials specifically.
Right.
So I looked before tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Colonials have gone up.
They've gone up.
And it's
Okay.
really just a matter of statistics. And
Okay.
we, the Board of Assessors, don't control the market.
Right.
And we don't control the sales, and we don't control the statistics in terms of, we only can analyze
Yeah.
the data that we have before us.
Yeah.
And statistically, last year, Columbia.
It was
went down.
odd, yeah. So
It defies logic, I get it.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and I don't have your experience. So, I'm looking at it and saying, I put a bunch of statistical data together, I don't have your experience. What do you foresee for capes and ranches? Do you see, obviously going up as well, likely?
I specifically looked at Colonials.
Okay, all
Well,
right.
1,200 square foot ranch is sold on Matfield Street for $5.25. So 1,200 square foot ranch on Matfield Street,
And
$5.25
we're talking-
in 24 days.
Yeah,
Sorry.
All right.
Yes.
So on the motion
Thank
for
you.
continuance,
So statistically,
yeah,
all residentials went up 7%.
okay.
Steve is surprised, I'm surprised it's not more, but that will probably happen next year.
okay, those in favor of a continuance?
Aye.
Aye.
No? Okay, it passes. passes, we will continue to next Wednesday.
So we have to do date and time certain, so it'd be December 1st.
Why don't we do next one?
Oh, you want to do the night before Thanksgiving?
Oh, good
Sure, I
lord.
mean,
Okay.
does town hall close early?
Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. The night before Thanksgiving?
I mean, at this point, we're making it more difficult on the treasurer's office more than anyone.
Well, why does it have to be, why can't it be on Monday?
Or
Why
just-
does it have to be on a
It can be.
Wednesday?
Do it, or if you want to, it's your decision.
Yeah, I mean, if, you know, assuming,
Well,
I'll check the
Nothing's
schedule.
gonna change between now and.
the only thing I want to, I believe the spirit of the motion is that you would prefer to have the Board of Assessors as a board meet again and make sure, or meet, and that they either take a vote or they are, as a board, presenting these numbers. And then if we meet next Monday or next Wednesday, I don't know as to whether or not the Board of Assessors have a scheduled meeting between now and then.
December
If-
1st.
So if that is
December
the
1st.
case, then I think it thwarts the mission of the motion.
I mean, we have absolutely no control on whether this will be on the Board of Assessors agenda or if they'll meet, so I mean,
Our next meeting is December
That's-
1st. We could put it on the agenda for that, but probably not any sooner, as far as I can see.
Well, Steve, actually, we had talked at the last meeting, because I'm gonna be away, that we weren't gonna meet that night.
Oh, right. Well, we're gonna have to maybe, I don't know. We'll have a majority. I'm not sure yet. I forgot about that, Paula, yeah.
Not to correct wise, but then it would be 2 weeks after that, it'd be the 15th of December.
No, we could do it the Wednesday before, the 8th or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Right,
talked about
yeah,
that,
we
Paula,
talked
right?
about
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
the 8th,
Right,
correct,
right.
Steve, yes.
And I can tell you December 8th would be, we would not, I cannot recommend, I mean, the board has a right to make whatever decision you would like to do, but on December 8th, that would make it very difficult for the treasurer to be able to do his job, to make sure that an actual tax bill is generated for the February 1st date.
do you have any flexibility in meeting as a board sooner?
I'm not sure about that, because, you know, I know you got your business to do, but I understand you want us to, you know, meet and formally look at that, but it's the way, as far as I can see, that we've always kind of done this, and really, you know, except for that formality of meeting and saying, geez, yeah, it looks good, nothing's gonna change.
And there's a new chair. Steve is here because Steve has done this year after year after year as the chair. So I can't speak for the chair. And
I can't either.
Chairs tend to set the agenda.
And actually, if I could interject, Mary, in answer to your question, no, we did not meet tonight. I know, yes, normally, the years that I've been on the board, we do meet ahead of time. It's great when we get the packet sooner, because then we can all talk to John individually if we have questions or whatever, but yes, normally we do meet and we have the opportunity to ask any questions, go over anything, but honestly, whether we meet or we don't, it's not gonna change it.
And also, when we meet in the past, it's been really to look at the values, not really any questions on this package, kind of, we have it there, but it's really to look up values and make sure things are copacetic on individual properties that I'm concerned about. But as far as this goes, like I said, you know, we've dictated that it's kind of all stat-driven, so there's not really, these numbers here really aren't gonna change at all, no matter what we do.
No, in that I do agree, because I had concerns about it before too, because the way it's set, John will sign for Steve and Cheryl, and then John would text me when the forms need to be signed online, and then I take care of it. And I had concerns myself, and I had talked to David, and he says, it's all just, it's fill in the blank. He takes numbers from this sheet, that sheet, puts them in, everything matches up. The state does their thing, we do our thing, and so whether we meet or not, it's not gonna change anything.
So I think with that clarification, could we rescind the vote? David, is that the proper form?
You would make a motion to,
is there enough change to justify?
Enough change? I think we have, I mean,
Well,
at first
you can't
we.
just change, you can't just make another motion, right, to.
So at first we had just one member of the board presenting with John. And the concern with the initial motion was that the additional board members on the Board of Assessors hadn't reviewed this. And I think the spirit of that is that they may have some information to offer, there could be changes, there was going to be some sort of discussion that would impact what we were going to be presented.
There couldn't be any
Now we
changes.
have,
Yeah.
now
Can't
we
be
have
changes,
two board members saying it, even if this had been presented to the board, nothing would change.
It can't. It's
Because
been
it
approved by the
can't.
Department of Revenue.
Which we had known though.
But I don't think the motion would have been made to send it back to that board. Had you known if you knew sending it back to them, nothing was gonna change, we were gonna get the same thing back again?
No, honestly, I'm uncomfortable with the procedure that they haven't met officially and blessed it and said, okay, this is what we're presenting.
So
I understand that no changes would be made, but they're presenting on something that they haven't met about.
Even if.
Well, the
you
sheet,
know-
they
they've
received
signed
it this
off on it before.
afternoon, but they've, like Paul said, they've approved each part that went in along
right.
this process.
That's correct.
Each part's been reviewed and approved by them, and it's only a compilation, right? This isn't,
Correct, yeah,
you
correct.
didn't,
Just like you said, Paula said, the numbers is, fill in from other areas. And to be honest with you, like I said, I've been doing this since 2005. It's never been the case where we sat down and said, that doesn't look right, change that, or whatever. We might have looked at it, but what John was talking about, or Paula, that on the meeting before tonight, which we didn't have, we go over, we have the values, which we want to look at to make sure on some of our tax cases, pilots, TIFs, whatever, that stuff I look at to make sure it's copacetic. But we don't say that, oh, that residential factor doesn't look right, this or that, and we can't change none of that stuff. We may look at it, but there's no formal vote or any discussion on that, because like John said, that we sign off on that stuff that creates this sheet. The Department of Revenue approves the numbers that create this sheet. Patriot presents numbers to the Department of Revenue that creates this sheet. So it's all been done ahead of time.
Is this coming out of a software package or like an Excel spreadsheet?
Excel spreadsheet.
Then I still have the same concerns.
That's fine.
So,
I don't know what to say.
hold on,
I really don't know what to
so
say.
Denise, it sounded like you were going to make a motion to rescind the continuation.
right, but you said it had to be,
I don't know, I'm not a.
Yeah, look at.
well, I
Robert's
believed
rules
you, you
expert.
sounded believable.
There does have to be, there
I
does
mean,
have to be new
yeah.
information that
Yeah.
would change something
I mean, the new
significantly, I believe.
information, basically, for me, is that Paula said that if they have another meeting, nothing's going to change. That you're sure they'll look at it, but nothing's going to change with this packet. And I presumed that in them reviewing it, something was going to change, but she received it, Cheryl received it.
So if I may.
2 out of 3 are set, two
It's just
are
that-
right here saying.
And I appreciate that, just the process is that we can't change it.
Yep.
Right.
All right,
So.
David.
Yep, so if I may, we normally run in the spirit of a parliamentary behavior, and we don't always worry about specific formalities. Because we're concerned about whether or not there's been material information presented to change the motion, what I would actually prefer to offer to the board, and I didn't want to be rude and object earlier, is that it was not necessarily a valid motion to continue. A continuation motion must also include date and time certain as part of the motion. So if a true parliamentarian was here, that person would rule that motion out of order because it did not include date and time certain. I attempted to interject, but obviously I didn't want to be rude and I was saying it late. So with that said, I think a true parliamentarian would say that the motion never actually existed because it was not in true format. If that is to be the case, then that means you are free to either continue the hearing or make a different motion.
I agree as a parliamentarian.
Paul, do you have any comment?
I guess as chair, I will rule what David said was not a valid motion. So Meredith does have the option of making a valid motion, or we can continue on with the presentation.
Oh, I do. I would still like to make the same motion. I would like to make a motion to continue this public hearing to December 1st, Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m.
Is there a second? Okay, with no second, the motion fails.
Okay.
Steve, back to you.
Okay. So we'll move on to the, if you don't mind. On the pages, you get the 3 blue, pink, and yellow coded pages. The next one we move, it's for your purposes. It lets you know at, when you decide to vote on a split, how it's going to affect the residential versus commercial properties. For example, if it's the white page, it says proposed splits for FY22 residential. And if you go to last year, your split was at the bottom of the page, John, was 137, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, 137.
It's flagged on the side of your chart.
This page here. Yeah, okay. The 137. Last year, the average value was 359,937, and I'm going from the bottom of the page at the last two lines there. The rate was 1671, so the average bill was 6,014.55. If you prove that rate this year at the 137, the average value went up to 382,152. The rate would be at that split of 137. The residential rate would be 1685 per thousand, and the bill would climb to 6,439.26, and that'd be a total raise for the year of $424.71. So what you want to do is, and we can go to the commercial if you want.
I think we can skip that. I mean, I think
Okay.
I think this one's better.
Yeah, I was going to go back to that. I was kind of let you know on that. Yeah. The on the page before that, I probably should have gone to that. I just tried to make it easier on you. The blue is residential, the middle pink is commercial and industrial, and it just, the page we just at kind of is a breakdown summary of these pages here. On the blue, on the left-hand column in the blue section, right in the middle of the page, what I just talked about a minute ago at the 137, it shows the potential bill for FY22. At the top of the page, I'm sorry if I'm confusing you, it shows the average residential value of 382,152. At the 137 rate, it would be 1685, and the bill would be 6439.26. And down the bottom of the page in the gray, it's last year's average bill. So what it does, it just shows you that what we talked about a minute ago, at 137, on the average bill, it would go up $424.72. So you charge tonight with the task of coming up with a split from the residential and commercial properties. Like I said, last year you're at 137, and you can see the effect on the tax rate and the percent change from last year on each individual. It's a 1% increment of the splits.
Thank you, Steve. All right, so
you're welcome.
Is there discussion on the split?
You mean as far as a recommendation?
Yeah.
So I feel pretty strongly about 1.43. But I feel more strongly about 1.44.
I was going to say 1.42. At least we're in the same ballpark.
We're in the same first two digits. Like I said, 1.44 is, I think, reasonable.
Let me just catch up, sorry.
I mean, at 1.44, you're looking at the average tax bill going up $183. And it does put a little more weight on the commercial.
Basically the same on the commercial.
Yeah.
No, I thought it goes up $878.
Well, dollar. I mean,
yeah,
percentage is
percent.
Basically,
Right.
both basically just over
Right,
3.
right.
But it's going to increase industrial 10%.
Was there a significant? Was there a new building, or the industrial is significantly more the average assessment, right?
Yeah, statistically, yes, Anthony. And I would note last year, industrial was the lowest, they were less money this year. So one could look at it as spreading it out over 2 years. The savings.
You see the average value,
that
you know,
they realized
right.
last year.
The average value is $500,000 different.
I'm sorry, the average value is a $500,000 difference on which?
Commercial versus industrial.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Sorry.
So I really like 1.44.
4.2 or 4.3. 4.4 is, that seems unfair to the industrial.
But I think you made a point that it's more spreading it out over 2 years. Although it's high this year, higher this year, it's more spreading it out.
Because it was so low last year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so 2-year average would be.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I can go with 1.44. I make a motion that the split is 1.44.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will submit the paperwork tomorrow morning, so we should be set for that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So.
Did I skip the fire
Yes,
department?
You did, I just didn't want to
Okay.
interrupt and let you know.
So there's a proposal for just less than 20 grand for a key fob entry system. I think this is good. I mean, pretty much everybody's getting away from hard keys. I'm assuming they don't have one currently.
They do not have one. It would mimic what we already have at the police station, town hall, and DPW, and is paid for being used, we're using the CARES funds, we're not using town funds.
Okay. Is there a motion to award the keyless entry system to Galaxy Integrated Technologies?
Is that the same one that did the town hall?
It is not, because we're required to go out to bid, and this was the lower bidder.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the first right of refusal on 223 Matfield Street. How big is, this is right next to the Housing Authority, right?
It's just past it, that's correct.
It does abut it.
Is there a map? It's okay. There it is. So you'll see Matfield Street is going, it's on the left-hand side. We're taking a right onto East Street. That very large piece of property that says remaining land is owned by the family that is proposing to sell off what is labeled now as Lot B. It's a 30,000 square foot buildable lot. This piece of property is part of the larger piece in the middle, and also to the left, it's all owned by the same family. So they are going to sell off Lot B. They're breaking it off. They've already gone before the planning board to be able to subdivide it. It is being sold as an undeveloped lot right now for building purposes, for residential building purposes, at $180,000. Per the process, the paperwork has been forwarded to all the other 3 boards that have a role in review, which is the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and the Board of Assessors. They have all made a recommendation to the Selectmen that we do not, or the town does not, use its first right of refusal to purchase the property. It is before your board as to whether to concur with that, and if so, we send a declination letter, and therefore they are free to sell the property. If instead you decide that you want to purchase the property, then we would have to call a special town meeting and ask the town to purchase it.
So you need a motion to either pass it or?
Yeah, so if we are going to decline, then we would make a motion to decline the town's first right of refusal. And if you would like to purchase it, then you would make a motion that you would like to attempt to purchase the property, and as such, we would then begin the process of calling a special town meeting.
No, I'll make a motion that we pass on the right of first refusal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment period, we do not have anyone here.
Oh, yeah.
Town administrators report.
Thank you. Really, I just have a handful of updates for the board. One in your packet is that your senior, for calendar year 2021, your senior tax work-off program paperwork has been provided. I do this every single year just so you know as to what is going on. Marilyn does an excellent job managing the program. We had 20 seniors participate this past year for a total of 74 hours and $20,000. That number is down over the last 2 years due to COVID. Next is a road safety audit that Mary actually participated in. You've probably received this as well.
Yes, I did.
So again, I just want to inform the board that on August 3rd, there was a road safety audit in which Mary participated, and also DPW Director Chris Antelli and Assistant DPW Director Sean Anderson. All three of them were there, along with Mass DOT reps. They looked at Manley Street and West Street, and they made a whole host of upgrade proposals, some that don't cost a lot of money, most of them that do. And so it's on record. If we ever want to do something to make improvements there, we'll be able to use this as a template. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I did hear from residents when the first copy came out, comments, and it was nice. I was able to add those comments to the final version. So it was a great experience.
And just so you're aware, these are done all the time. That includes these types of projects. We just did the exact same road safety audit that I participated in last week in reference to the Lincoln Street project, which is why we're doing the lights. There is a lot of work that is done. You saw the work that's done into this, and that same amount of work was done in the other project as well. Update on Pfas. So the Board of Selectmen has requested the Water Department provide an update on a weekly basis. I will say this past week, here are the new numbers that just came in. We have 4 stations. At 3 stations, stations 1, 2, and 4, you can see that it used to be at 70 parts per trillion. Mass DP regulations have been reduced down to 20 parts per trillion. But you can see at those 3 stations, we're nowhere close even to 20, which is excellent news. They're very, very low. Unfortunately, on Station 3, we do see that it is at 22.4, which is at the Manley Street project. Again, they will have to notify residents and continue to do the process that they did last month. I will say, in attempting to try to make some changes and mitigate for this going forward, I believe I informed the board that thanks to our state rep Michelle Dubois, she was able to secure $100,000 as an approved amendment to the budget at the House. She had petitioned for $350,000. I then forwarded the $350,000 request to Senator Timilty, had a conversation with him as well. He concurred with the process that the Senate and the House have had an agreement and granted an informal agreement, but if both of them pass the same amendment, and as long as there is money is available, that they will approve through reconciliation the higher amount. So he was attempting to get $350,000 on behalf of the town. They are still in session. I attempted to try to get an answer from him yesterday. There was no update. So hopefully we'll be able to receive $350,000. If so, the Water Department met with Taft and Howard, which is a engineering firm, with a proposal that we would be able to install at that Manley Street project a carbon filtration system that specifically mitigates out for Pfas. And right now that quote is $365,000. So hopefully we can pay for the bulk of it using state funds. If we cannot, if we find in the next week or so the Senate still only approves 100, then I will come back with the Water Department. You'll recall that this board set aside the $1.3 million of ARPA funds, the federal funds released back in May, that are sitting with Plymouth County. You have earmarked that specifically for a wastewater treatment plant, which would cost millions and millions. But what I would recommend and ask the board to approve is to take the difference out so we can immediately get a filtration system in there so we can begin to mitigate for Pfas. So again, we'll keep you up to date as that goes along. I do want to say thank you. I had a very lengthy conversation with Water Commissioner Cabral last night. He was very, very helpful, and again, I think the town's pretty fortunate to have him as a commissioner. Howard Street Lights is next. They are now up and working. Everything has been restriped and taken care of. And again, I want to say thank you to the DPW department. They really did an excellent job in taking care of that, making sure that traffic continued to move. And because we want to make sure that they conducted their work in the safest way, they came in last Sunday night to actually restripe because there was a lot less traffic to make sure they're safe. And then also just an update that I signed off on Girl Scouts' request to use the town hall.
I don't think it's Girl Scouts, does that matter?
It's an update, there's no vote, but
Oh, okay.
it's, yeah. Yep, it's
Oh, it
Girl
is?
Scouts.
Oh, look at that.
All right, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session, not to return to open session, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, specifically the national opioid lawsuit the town is a party to, since in my opinion as chair, strategizing in open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, and as a roll call vote?
Anderson, yes.
Raise, yes.
Kinahan, yes. We are now in executive session.